Hi guys, welcome back. Happy Monday. Today we're going to be doing a lesson called Calling 911. Our lesson is focusing on Chapter 7, The Bottle of Medicine, and today we're going to be discussing emergencies. So before we start our lesson, I just want to go over a vocabulary word for emergency or emergencies, which would be more than one. So emergencies are serious, unexpected, and often dangerous situations. So that's the definition of an emergency. Something that's unexpected and it can be dangerous and it's serious. Okay, so today we're going to be discussing some of the important events from Chapter 7. And in Chapter 7, as we all know, because everybody should have already listened to or watched the audiobook recording for Chapter 7, so you had a review of it. So we should all know that there was a big emergency in Chapter 7. So sometimes we practice what to do in an emergency, like when we hear a fire alarm, right? Or other types of emergencies, like if somebody was sick and they needed help. So before we talk about the emergency in Chapter 7, I want to just talk about emergencies in general. So let's focus on something that we are all familiar with, like a fire alarm. So I have some sentence strips right here, and they're not in any proper order, and they talk about the directions that we use when there is a fire alarm. So right here I have move to the nearest exit, wait for permission to return to the building, stop what you're doing, and move a safe distance from the building. So let's think. When we're in class and sometimes we're practicing for a fire drill and we hear the fire alarm, what are we supposed to do? The first thing we're supposed to do is stop what we're doing, right? We stop, we line up, and we quietly, without talking, follow Miss E or whatever teacher you're with through the building to the nearest exit. We walk out the exit and we walk across the street away from the building, and we wait until we're told to come back in, right? So let's look at these sentence strips. So what's the first thing that we do? We have to stop what we're doing. So the first thing we would do in an emergency like a fire alarm is stop what we're doing. What's the next thing we would do? Would we wait for permission to return? No. Move a safe distance from the building? Yes, we have to do that, but I think first we'd have to be outside of the building. So I think the next thing we would do is move to the nearest exit. After that, we're going to move a safe distance away from the building. And then last but not least, we'll wait for permission to return, or in the case if there really was a fire, then we would have to dismiss from outside because we wouldn't be allowed back in with a fire. Okay, so now that we've reviewed these sentence strips, I want to talk about the emergency from Chapter 7. So in our story, Anne of Green Gables, we read about another kind of emergency. It wasn't a fire, right? There was a different kind of emergency. In Chapter 7, Diana, Anne's friend, had a baby sister who was very sick. And Diana ran to Green Gables to get Matthew and Anne to come help her with her baby sister. Today, we wouldn't have to run to a neighbor's house because we have something called a telephone. And most of us also have cell phones. So even if we weren't by a house phone, we'd be able to call someone for help. So think about ways that you can use the telephone to get help. All right, I want you guys to think, how can you use the telephone to get help? All right. So right now we're going to read an article called Calling 911. So I want you guys to listen to me while I read aloud this article so you can learn about calling 911 and some directions that you follow for it, just like the directions you would follow for a fire alarm. All right, so I'm gonna read it out loud, then you guys will reread your own copy and answer the attached questions. Okay. Calling 911 in an emergency. Diana had an emergency. Her baby sister was very sick, so Diana called on Ann to help. Today, we can call 911. Let's pretend that someone in your family is very sick. Let's practice what to say in a real emergency. And then it says the things that you'll need are a phone. So here are the directions you would follow in case you had to call 911 for an emergency for a family member or friend that was sick. Dial 911. Your teacher will answer the phone and ask you some questions. Be ready to answer the questions. Okay, so I'm going to just have to read this aloud for you. We won't be able to do that part. So step 2 says 911. What is your emergency? So what are you going to say? When they say 911, what is your emergency? We would say something like, hello, 911, I'm calling. My family member has passed out on the floor and they're not waking up. Okay, step 3 would be, thank you. What is the address of your emergency? And then I'm going to tell them my address. So I would say 900 Court Street in New Rochelle, New York. Okay, then they're going to ask me, what is your phone number that you're calling from? And then I'll make up 914-100-0025. I'll tell them my phone number. Then they're going to say, help is already on the way. Tell me exactly what happened. So I'll say, okay, my family member was walking and they said they felt dizzy and all of a sudden they passed out and they're not waking up. So I'll tell them exactly what happened. Number 7, how old is he or she? They're going to ask how old they are. So I'll tell them how old. Oh, my family member is 70 years old. Then they're going to ask me, are you with them? Yes, I'm with them. I'm sitting right next to them while I'm calling. They're going to say, is he or she awake? And I'll say, no, they're not awake. I can't get them to wake up. And then the last thing they'll ask me is he or she breathing, and I'll check and I'll say, yes, they're breathing. All right, so that's just some practice that you can actually go through either with one of your siblings or your parents or a friend over the phone. You guys can practice going through these directions so that you would know what to say during an emergency. All right, so read your article and answer the questions. Good job. Bye.